My name is Jake, and I'm 34 years old, living what I thought was a perfect life in Denver, Colorado. 12 years of marriage, a beautiful 10-year-old son named Tommy, and a wife who seemed to love our family as much as I did. But on this particular Saturday morning, something felt different when Sarah insisted we take separate cars to her parents' 40th anniversary party. We always drove together to family events. Always. The unease in my stomach grew stronger as we prepared for what should have been a celebration. Little did I know that during our drive to Boulder, my son would whisper 5 words that would completely shatter everything I believed about my marriage. Before we dive into the story, I'd love to know where you're watching from, so drop your city in the comments below. If the story resonates with you or you're curious about how a child's innocent discovery can change everything, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, what Tommy found will shock you as much as it did me. Sarah and I met during our senior year at the University of Colorado. She was studying film marketing and I was finishing my degree in construction management. Our first date was at a small coffee shop in Boulder, and I knew immediately she was special. She had this infectious laugh and a way of making everyone around her feel important. We dated for 2 years before I proposed on the same hiking trail where we'd had our first real conversation about our future together. Our wedding was everything we'd dreamed of. A small ceremony in the Colorado mountains with close family and friends. Sarah looked absolutely stunning in her grandmother's vintage dress, and when she walked down the aisle, I felt like the luckiest man alive. We honeymooned in Costa Rica, spending 2 weeks exploring beaches and rainforests, planning our life together. The early years of marriage were blissful. We bought our first home in Lakewood, a cozy 3-bedroom ranch with a big backyard, perfect for the family we wanted to start. I worked my way up from assistant project manager to senior project manager at Denver Construction Solutions, while Sarah built her career at Morrison Marketing Group. We fell into comfortable routines that felt natural and fulfilling. Tommy arrived 2 years after our wedding, and everything changed in the most beautiful way. Sarah was an incredible mother, from day one patient and nurturing in ways that amazed me. I loved coming home from construction sites to find them playing in the backyard or reading together on the couch. Our weekends revolved around Tommy's activities, from Little League baseball to swimming lessons at the community center. We had traditions that defined our family identity. Sunday morning pancakes that I'd make while Sarah and Tommy set the table. Annual camping trips to Rocky Mountain National Park, where we disconnect from technology and just enjoy being together. Holiday celebrations at our house, where Sarah would go overboard with decorations and I'd handle all the outdoor lighting displays that made Tommy beam with pride. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. Our neighbors, the Johnsons, often commented on how lucky we were to have such a strong marriage. Sarah's colleagues at work frequently mentioned how she talked about our family with such obvious love and pride. Tommy's teachers consistently told us what a well-adjusted, happy child we were raising. But over the past 6 months, Subtle changes had crept into our daily life. Sarah started working later, more frequently, often not getting home until after Tommy's bedtime. She explained that her company was considering her for a senior marketing director position, which would require additional responsibilities and longer hours. I supported her ambition completely, taking over more of the evening routines with Tommy. She became more protective of her phone, taking it with her to the bathroom or keeping it face down during dinner. When I'd ask about her day, her responses became shorter and less detailed. The spontaneous affection that had always characterized our relationship started to fade. Instead of cuddling on the couch while watching movies, she'd sit on the opposite end, scrolling through work emails. Our intimate life suffered too, though Sarah attributed this to work stress and exhaustion. She'd fall asleep quickly after coming home late, and weekend mornings, that used to be our special time together, became filled with errands and Tommy's activities. I told myself this was temporary, that once she got the promotion, things would return to normal. The changes were so gradual that I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. Sarah still participated in family activities and seemed genuinely happy during Tommy's baseball games or school events. She still laughed at my terrible dad jokes and helped with homework every night she was home on time. These moments of normalcy made it easier to dismiss my growing concerns as overthinking. The morning of Richard and Linda Thompson's 40th anniversary party started like any typical Saturday. Sarah's parents had been planning this celebration for months, and it was clearly important to the entire extended family. Richard had worked as a high school principal for 35 years, while Linda was a retired nurse. Their marriage was the gold standard that everyone in the family looked up to, and reaching 40 years together was a milestone worth celebrating properly. Sarah had been unusually involved in every detail of the party planning over the past month. She'd coordinated with her brother David about catering, spent hours on the phone with various relatives about accommodations, and even drove to Boulder twice to help her mother with decorations. Her investment in making this party perfect seemed to go beyond normal daughter duties, but I attributed it to her natural attention to detail and love for her parents. The party was scheduled to start at 4 in the afternoon at her parents' house in Boulder, about a 45-minute drive from our home in Lakewood. Tommy had soccer practice until noon, which would give us plenty of time to get ready and arrive fashionably on time. At least, that was my assumption until Sarah announced her plan over breakfast. "I think we should take separate cars today," she said casually while buttering Tommy's toast. "I need to get there early to help Mom with the final setup, and you can come later with Tommy after his practice." The suggestion caught me completely off guard. In 12 years of marriage, we'd never taken separate cars to family events unless one of us had to leave early or arrive late for work reasons. Family gatherings were something we experienced together, from the drive there to the drive home, sharing our thoughts about conversations and catching up on family gossip. "Are you sure that's necessary?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "I could skip watching practice and come help set up too. Tommy's coach has plenty of parent volunteers." Sarah shook her head quickly, not making eye contact. No, you promised Tommy you'd watch his scrimmage today. Besides, there's really not much for you to do. It's mostly just moving furniture and arranging flowers. Girl stuff, you know. Something about her explanation felt rehearsed, like she'd been preparing for this conversation. Sarah had never referred to party planning as girl stuff before. She usually appreciated my help with heavy lifting and practical logistics. Her dismissive tone was unlike her, and it added to the unease I'd been feeling about her recent behavior changes. I watched her move around the kitchen with nervous energy, checking her phone more frequently than usual. She'd spent an unusual amount of time getting ready that morning, trying on 3 different outfits before settling on a new blue dress I'd never seen before. She'd also spent extra time on her makeup and hair, far more effort than typical family gatherings required. "When did you buy that dress?" I asked, nodding toward her outfit. "Oh, this old thing, I've had it forever," she replied quickly, but I was certain I'd never seen it in our closet. Another small lie that added to my growing collection of concerns. Tommy finished his breakfast and ran upstairs to get his soccer gear, leaving Sarah and me alone in the kitchen. I took the opportunity to study her face, looking for clues about what was really going on. She seemed genuinely nervous, almost anxious rather than excited about celebrating her parents' milestone. "Everything okay with you lately?" I asked gently. "You seem stressed about something." "I'm fine, Jake. Just want everything to be perfect for Mom and Dad. This is a big day for them." Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and she turned away to load the dishwasher, effectively ending our conversation. The drive to Tommy's soccer practice was unusually quiet. Sarah followed us in her car, planning to head straight to Boulder from the soccer fields. She waved goodbye from her driver's seat, blowing kisses to Tommy, but barely made eye contact with me. As I watched her drive away, the feeling in my stomach told me something was definitely wrong. Tommy's practice went well, but I found myself distracted replaying the morning's conversation and Sarah's odd behavior. During the scrimmage, I noticed Tommy glancing toward the parking lot several times, looking for his mom. When practice ended, he asked why she couldn't stay to watch like she usually did. Mom had to help Grandma Linda with party preparations. I explained, which was technically true, but felt incomplete. The drive to Boulder should have been pleasant. The October afternoon was beautiful, with the aspen trees showing off their golden fall colors against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains. Tommy was excited about seeing his cousins and grandparents chattering about the soccer game and asking if there would be cake at the party. But about 20 minutes into our drive, Tommy's mood changed. He became quiet and kept fidgeting with something in his pocket. When I tried to engage him in conversation about school or his upcoming Halloween costume, his responses were distracted and brief. "Everything all right, buddy?" I asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. Tommy looked out the window for a long moment before reaching into his pocket. "Dad, I need to tell you something. Mom doesn't know I found this." Tommy pulled out a small piece of paper, folded several times, and handed it to me carefully. I waited until we reached a straight stretch of highway before unfolding it, and what I read made my heart stop completely. The handwriting was definitely not mine. In blue ink, someone had written, Sarah last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about our time together. When can we finally stop hiding and be together for real? I love you more than you know. M. My hands started shaking as I held the paper, trying to process what I was reading while maintaining control of the car. The words seemed to blur and sharpen alternately as my mind struggled to accept their reality. This was definitive proof that my wife was having an affair discovered by our innocent 10-year-old son. "Where did you find this, Tommy?" I asked, forcing my voice to remain calm and steady. "In Mom's purse 2 days ago. I was looking for gum because my mouth tasted funny after lunch and it was just sitting there on top of her wallet. I didn't mean to read it, but I saw my name. I saw Sarah and got curious." Tommy's explanation was delivered with the straightforward honesty that only children possess. He clearly didn't fully understand the implications of what he'd found, but he knew it was significant enough to bring to my attention. His trust in me to handle this information properly was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. "Have you told anyone else about this?" I asked. "No, Dad. I wanted to ask Mom about it, but something told me I should talk to you first." "Is Mom in trouble?" The innocence in his question nearly broke me. Here was my son, worried about getting his mother in trouble for something that was destroying our family. I had to be incredibly careful about how I handled this conversation, protecting Tommy's emotional well-being while gathering the information I needed. "Tommy, you did the right thing by telling me. This is adult stuff that Mom and I need to work out together. You're not in trouble, and Mom's not in trouble with you. But I need to ask you some questions, okay?" Tommy nodded solemnly, clearly understanding that this was an important conversation. "Have you noticed anything different about Mom lately? Maybe strange phone calls or her acting differently?" Tommy thought for a moment, his face scrunched in concentration. "She talks on the phone a lot more, always in her bedroom with the door closed. And last week, when you were working late, a man called asking for her. When I told her, she got really worried and asked what he said. Do you remember the man's name?" "Marcus, I think." "Yeah, Marcus. She called him back from her bedroom and talked for a really long time. I could hear her voice through the door, but not the words. Marcus. The M who signed the love note. Everything suddenly made perfect sense. Sarah's late nights at work, her secretive phone behavior, her insistence on separate cars today. She was having an affair with someone named Marcus, and she'd planned today's separate car arrangement to facilitate seeing him. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. 12 years of marriage, a beautiful son, a life we'd built together, and she was throwing it all away for someone else. The woman I trusted completely, who I'd never doubted for a second, had been living a double life for months. "Dad, are you okay? You look really sad." Tommy's concerned voice brought me back to the immediate situation. I was still driving toward a party where I'd have to see Sarah and pretend everything was normal, all while processing this devastating revelation. My first instinct was to turn around, go home, and confront Sarah immediately. But that would ruin her parents' anniversary celebration and traumatize Tommy even more. "I'm okay, buddy. Just thinking about what you told me. Listen, this is really important. We're going to go to Grandma and Grandpa's party and have a good time. We won't talk about this note while we're there, okay? This is between you, me, and Mom, and we'll handle it privately. Are you and Mom going to get divorced like Jake's parents did? The question I'd been dreading asked with the brutal directness of a child. Jake was Tommy's best friend from school, whose parents had divorced the previous year. Tommy had asked several questions about divorce after that, and I'd always reassured him that his mom and I loved each other and would always be together. I don't know what's going to happen, Tommy, but I want you to know that no matter what, your mom and I both love you very much. Nothing that's happening between adults will ever change how much we love you. Can you remember that? I love you too, Dad. I'm sorry I found that paper. Don't be sorry, buddy. You did exactly the right thing by telling me. You're a good kid, and I'm proud of you. The rest of the drive to Boulder passed in relative silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Tommy seemed relieved to have shared his burden, while I used the remaining time to prepare myself mentally for what would undoubtedly be the most difficult performance of my life. Richard and Linda Thompson's house in Boulder was transformed for the celebration. The backyard had been decorated with white tents, strings of lights, and round tables covered with elegant linens. About 30 family members and close friends had already arrived, creating a festive atmosphere that stood in stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. Sarah was playing her role perfectly, greeting guests with warm hugs and genuine smiles. She looked beautiful in her new blue dress, her hair styled in a way that made her look younger than her 32 years. To everyone else, she was the devoted daughter celebrating her parents' milestone, the loving wife who'd arrived early to help with preparations. But now I could see everything differently. The way she checked her phone every few minutes, supposedly monitoring last-minute party details. The nervous energy that I'd attributed to perfectionism was actually anxiety about maintaining her deception. Her careful avoidance of extended eye contact with me when we arrived, greeting Tommy with exaggerated enthusiasm to cover the awkward moment. "Jake, so glad you made it safely." Linda Thompson embraced me warmly. "Sarah's been such a help today. We couldn't have done this without her." "She's always been good at organizing," I replied, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. If only Linda knew what else Sarah had been organizing lately. Richard Thompson shook my hand firmly, his retired principal's demeanor as warm and authoritative as always. 40 years, Jake. Can you believe it? Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime. But I can't imagine it with anyone else. His words about not imagining life with anyone else hit me like a knife to the chest. I'd felt exactly the same way about Sarah until 30 minutes ago. Now I was questioning everything I thought I knew about our marriage. The family introductions began, and I found myself paying attention to every male guest whose name might start with M. Sarah's cousin Michael was clearly not the man from the note. He was happily married, with 3 young children, and spent the entire conversation talking about his wife's recent promotion. Martin, a family friend from Richard's teaching days, was in his 70s and more interested in discussing retirement planning than romantic affairs. Tommy ran off to play with his cousins in the backyard, and I was grateful for his distraction. Children have a wonderful ability to find joy even in difficult circumstances, and I wanted him to enjoy this time with family regardless of what was happening between his parents. Uncle Jake, David Sarah's younger brother, approached with his wife Kelly. They'd been married for 5 years and were expecting their first child in the spring. Great to see you. How's the construction business treating you? David and Kelly were among my favorite people in Sarah's family. They were genuine, down-to-earth people who'd never gotten caught up in drama or pretense. Kelly was a nurse at Denver Health, and David worked as a software engineer. Their relationship had always seemed solid and built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Business is good. We're working on a new office complex downtown that should keep us busy through next summer. I managed to engage in normal conversation while part of my mind continued processing the implications of Tommy's discovery. Sarah seems really stressed about something today, Kelly observed quietly. I asked if she was feeling okay, and she said work's been overwhelming. This promotion she's going for must be really competitive. I nodded, wondering how many other people had noticed Sarah's unusual behavior. Kelly was perceptive, especially about emotional undercurrents, and if she'd picked up on something, others probably had too. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of someone I hadn't expected to see. Marcus Rivera, one of Sarah's college friends, walked into the backyard with his wife Angela. I'd met Marcus a few times over the years at various social gatherings, but he and Sarah hadn't seemed particularly close. He was a marketing executive at a different firm, attractive in a conventional way, with dark hair and an easy smile that probably served him well in business. Sarah's reaction to Marcus's arrival was immediate and telling. Her face went pale for a moment before she quickly composed herself, but not before I caught the flash of panic in her eyes. She was standing near the beverage table when he walked in, and she immediately busied herself rearranging bottles that didn't need rearranging. Marcus and Angela made their way around the party, greeting Richard and Linda before approaching other guests. When they reached Sarah, the interaction was carefully polite and distant. Too distant for old college friends, and definitely too careful for people who hadn't seen each other in months. "Marcus? What a surprise," Sarah said, her voice slightly higher than normal. "I didn't know you and Angela were coming. Linda called last week and invited us. We couldn't miss celebrating 40 years of marriage." Marcus replied, his tone equally careful. "You know how much Angela and I admire your parents." The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes, but I observed every subtle detail. The way Sarah avoided looking directly at Marcus. How Angela seemed oblivious to any tension, chatting pleasantly about work and mutual friends. The careful distance Marcus maintained, almost formal in his politeness. But most telling was what happened 15 minutes later. Sarah excused herself to go inside ostensibly to check on something in the kitchen. 3 minutes after she went inside, Marcus mentioned needing to use the restroom and headed toward the house. He was gone for nearly 10 minutes, and when he returned, his demeanor seemed more relaxed. Sarah emerged from the house 5 minutes after Marcus, but her eyes were red as if she'd been crying. She immediately went to the bathroom outside the garage, presumably to fix her makeup and compose herself. Everything was becoming crystal clear. The separate cars weren't just about helping with setup. They were about giving Sarah an opportunity to coordinate with Marcus before the party. The emotional conversation they just had inside was probably about how to handle being at the same event together. Sarah's tears suggested this situation was causing her genuine distress, but not enough to end the affair. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak watching my wife navigate her deception so carefully. The woman I'd loved and trusted for 12 years was protecting her affair partner rather than her marriage. She was more concerned about Marcus's comfort at this party than about the lies she was telling her own family. As the dinner portion of the party began, I found myself seated at the main family table with Sarah's parents Tommy and several aunts and uncles. Sarah was directly across from me, which gave me an unobstructed view of her continued nervous behavior. She barely touched her food, spent more time moving it around her plate than eating, and continued checking her phone discreetly. Linda Thompson had prepared a beautiful toast to Richard, talking about their early courtship, the challenges they'd overcome together, and the strength they'd found in their partnership. 40 years of marriage isn't just about love, she said, raising her champagne glass. It's about choosing each other every single day through good times and difficulties, and never giving up on the promise you made. The irony of Linda's words, spoken directly to a table that included her daughter, who was betraying her own marriage vows, was almost too much to bear. I watched Sarah's face during the toast, looking for any sign of guilt or recognition of the hypocrisy. She smiled and clapped appropriately, but her eyes remained distant and distracted. Tommy was enjoying himself immensely, completely absorbed in conversations with his cousins about video games and school activities. His ability to compartmentalize and enjoy the moment, despite what he'd shared with me earlier, was a testament to his resilience. I was grateful that he could still experience joy even while carrying the burden of adult knowledge. Marcus and Angela were seated at a table across the tent, and I found myself studying their interactions as well. Angela seemed genuinely happy and engaged with other guests, completely unaware of her husband's betrayal. She laughed easily, shared stories about their recent vacation to Mexico, and spoke lovingly about Marcus's recent promotion at work. The contrast between Angela's innocent happiness and my own growing awareness was striking. In a few hours, I'd gone from being like Angela, trusting completely in my spouse's fidelity, to seeing the careful choreography of deception happening right in front of me. Sarah excused herself from the table, again this time, saying she needed to help her mother with dessert preparation. I watched Marcus's reaction. He didn't immediately follow this time, but his attention was clearly focused on the house rather than the conversation at his table. "Dad, can I go play with Lucas and Emma?" Tommy asked, referring to his cousins who were organizing some kind of backyard game. "Of course, buddy. Have fun." With Tommy occupied and Sarah inside, I decided to take action. I needed to create an opportunity for a private conversation with Sarah, and I needed to do it before this charade continued any longer. "I'm going to move our car," I announced to the table. someone parked behind me, and I might need to leave early tomorrow morning for a work call. This wasn't true, but it gave me a legitimate reason to ask Sarah for help. I walked toward the house and found her in the kitchen, genuinely helping her mother arrange dessert plates. "Sarah, could you help me with something outside? I need to move our car." Linda waved us away cheerfully. "Go ahead, dear. I can handle the rest of this." Sarah followed me outside, and I led her toward the driveway where both our cars were parked. Once we were away from the party guests, I stopped walking and turned to face her. "We need to talk," I said quietly, pulling the note from my pocket. "Tommy found this in your purse 2 days ago." Sarah's face went completely white as she recognized the paper. For a moment, she looked like she might faint, gripping the side of my car for support. "Jake, I can explain. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think, Sarah. You're having an affair with Marcus. The separate cars today was so you could coordinate with him before the party. You've been lying to me for months." The denial died on her lips as she realized there was no point in continuing the deception. Tears started flowing down her cheeks, but I felt no sympathy. My anger was controlled but absolute. "How long?" I asked. 6 months, she whispered. "It started as just friendship, someone to talk to about work stress. But it became more, and I didn't know how to stop it." "Did you sleep with him?" Sarah's silence was answer enough. The betrayal was complete, not just emotional, but physical as well. "Were you planning to leave me?" "I don't know. I've been so confused. I love our family, but I have feelings for Marcus too. I was going to ask for a separation after the party to figure things out." Her admission that she'd been planning to break up our family sent a fresh wave of rage through me. She'd been orchestrating the destruction of Tommy's stable home life while playing the perfect wife and mother. "So, this party, your parents' anniversary celebration, was going to be your last performance before destroying our son's family. Jake, please don't make this uglier than it has to be. I never wanted to hurt you or Tommy." "But you did hurt us, Sarah. You've been hurting us for 6 months with your lies and betrayal. And you involved our son by being careless enough to leave evidence where he could find it." The conversation continued for several more minutes, with Sarah alternating between justifications and apologies. She claimed the affair was about feeling unappreciated and overwhelmed that Marcus understood her in ways I didn't. She insisted she'd never meant for it to go this far, that she'd been trying to end it, but couldn't bring herself to cut off contact. Every word she spoke made me more certain that our marriage was over. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a mistake that could be forgiven and forgotten. This was a deliberate choice to pursue another relationship while maintaining the facade of our family life. "What happens now?" Sarah asked, her voice small and defeated. "Now you're going to go back inside and finish celebrating your parents' anniversary," I said firmly. I said, "You're going to act normal for the rest of this party, because Richard and Linda don't deserve to have their special day ruined by your choices. Tomorrow, we'll figure out how to tell Tommy and start discussing arrangements. Can we try counseling? Can we work through this?" I looked at the woman I'd loved for 12 years, seeing clearly for the first time how far she'd traveled away from the person I'd married. The Sarah I'd fallen in love with wouldn't have been capable of this level of deception and betrayal. I don't think so, Sarah. This isn't something that just happened. You made a series of choices over 6 months that led us here. You chose Marcus over our family every single time. Returning to the party required every ounce of self-control I possessed. Sarah's face was blotchy from crying, but she managed to compose herself enough to blend back into the celebration. I watched her move through the crowd, accepting compliments on the party's success, while knowing that her marriage was effectively over. Rather than create a scene or leave abruptly, I made a decision that surprised even me. I was going to take control of this situation and handle it with dignity, both for Tommy's sake and my own self-respect. During a natural lull in conversation, I stood up and asked for everyone's attention. The diverse group of family and friends quieted down, expecting perhaps a toast or announcement about the anniversary couple. I wanted to take a moment to say something about Richard and Linda. I began, my voice steady and clear. 40 years of marriage is an incredible achievement in today's world. It represents a commitment to honesty, loyalty, and putting your family first even when things get difficult. I looked directly at Sarah as I spoke, then shifted my gaze to Marcus, who had gone pale, understanding the subtext of my words. Marriage requires choosing your spouse and your family every single day, especially when faced with temptations or challenges that could lead you away from your commitments. Richard and Linda have shown all of us what it means to honor the promises you make to each other. The applause was warm and genuine, with several people commenting on how meaningful my words were. Sarah looked mortified, while Marcus had found sudden interest in his dessert plate. After the speech, I approached Richard and Linda privately. They deserved to know what was happening, even though the timing was terrible. I need to speak with you both about something important, I said quietly. This probably isn't the right time, but I don't want you to be blindsided later. Richard's principal instincts kicked in immediately. He'd dealt with enough family crises over the years to recognize serious situations. What's going on, Jake? Sarah has been having an affair for the past 6 months. Tommy discovered evidence a few days ago, and I confronted her tonight. We'll be discussing separation and divorce in the coming days. Linda's hand flew to her mouth in shock, while Richard's expression hardened with disappointment and anger. I'm so sorry, Jake, Linda whispered. I can't believe Sarah would do something like this. I'm sorry too, Richard added. You and Tommy are family to us, and that won't change regardless of what happens between you and Sarah. Their support meant more to me than I could express. In losing my wife, I was potentially losing my connection to people who'd become genuine family over the years. Knowing that Richard and Linda didn't blame me and still considered Tommy and me part of their family provided some comfort in an otherwise devastating situation. My next conversation was with Tommy, who was still playing happily with his cousins. I pulled him aside privately and sat down at his eye level. Tommy, remember our conversation in the car about the note you found? He nodded seriously. Well, Mom and I talked about it, and we've realized we have some grown-up problems we need to work through. This means there might be some changes in our family, but I want you to know that both Mom and I Love you very much. None of this is your fault, and nothing will change how much we love you. Are you going to get divorced? I don't know yet, buddy. But even if that happens, you'll always have both your parents loving you and taking care of you. And you'll still get to see Grandma Linda and Grandpa Richard and all your cousins. The important things won't change. Tommy hugged me tightly. I love you, Dad. I'm glad I told you about the note. I love you too. And you did the absolutely right thing by telling me. You're a brave, good kid. Rather than stay for the remainder of the party, I decided to take Tommy home. The emotional toll of maintaining a facade while processing my marriage's end was becoming unbearable, and I wanted to give Sarah space to deal with her family's inevitable questions. We're going to head home, I announced to the main group. Tommy has an early soccer game tomorrow, and I want to make sure he gets enough rest. This wasn't true, but it provided a graceful exit that wouldn't require lengthy explanations. Sarah approached as I was gathering Tommy's things. Jake, please. Can we talk more tonight when you get home? I think we've said everything that needs to be said for now. We'll figure out the logistics tomorrow. Her pleading expression almost weakened my resolve. But then I remembered the months of lies, the deliberate deception, and the fact that she'd been planning to ask for a separation after this very party. Sarah, you made your choice already, multiple times over 6 months. Now I'm making mine. The drive home with Tommy was quiet, but not uncomfortable. He seemed relieved that the secret was finally out and that adults were handling the situation. We stopped for ice cream on the way home, a small gesture to preserve some normalcy in what had become a completely abnormal day. The weeks following the anniversary party were a whirlwind of difficult but necessary actions. I contacted a divorce attorney first thing Monday morning, a family law specialist who came highly recommended by a colleague who'd gone through his own divorce 2 years earlier. The attorney, Patricia Webb, was compassionate but straightforward about the realities of divorce proceedings in Colorado. Document everything you can about the affair, she advised. Colorado is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity can still impact decisions about alimony and property division, especially if marital assets were used to support the affair. I provided copies of the note Tommy had found, along with detailed records I'd started keeping about Sarah's behavior changes over the past 6 months. My phone records showed the increased frequency of her private calls, and her credit card statements revealed charges at restaurants and hotels that corresponded with her claimed late work nights. The most difficult part was arranging for Tommy to speak with a child psychologist. Dr. Jennifer Martinez specialized in helping children navigate family transitions, and her warm patient approach immediately put Tommy at ease. Children are remarkably resilient, Dr. Martinez explained to me after her first session with Tommy. He understands that his parents are having problems, but he doesn't blame himself, which is the most important thing. The fact that he came to you with information shows he trusts you to handle difficult situations appropriately. Sarah moved out of our house 3 weeks after the party initially staying with her brother David and his wife Kelly. The conversation about living arrangements was painful but civil, focused primarily on what would be best for Tommy. "I want shared custody," Sarah insisted. "Tommy needs both his parents." "Tommy needs parents who are honest and trustworthy," I replied. "You'll have to rebuild that trust with him, just like you would have had to rebuild it with me." Sarah's attempts at reconciliation were persistent but futile. She sent long emails explaining her emotional state during the affair, claiming that she'd felt disconnected from our marriage and that Marcus had simply been available during a vulnerable time. She suggested couples counseling, promised to end all contact with Marcus, and even offered to quit her job to remove any temptation. But the damage was too comprehensive to repair. Beyond the physical betrayal, Sarah had demonstrated a capacity for sustained deception that made it impossible for me to trust her again. She'd looked me in the eye every day for 6 months while maintaining an elaborate lie. She'd involved our son by being careless with evidence of her affair. Most importantly, she'd been planning to leave our family anyway, only changing course when she got caught. The divorce proceedings moved forward with surprising efficiency. Colorado's no-fault laws meant we didn't have to prove wrongdoing, but Sarah's infidelity did influence the financial settlement. She agreed to a custody arrangement that gave me primary physical custody of Tommy, with her having him every other weekend and 1 evening per week. Marcus divorced his wife Angela around the same time, and their relationship became public knowledge within our social circles. The collateral damage extended beyond just our immediate families. Mutual friends were forced to choose sides, neighborhood dynamics shifted, and Tommy lost daily contact with some children whose parents felt awkward about the situation. But there were unexpected positives as well. My relationship with Tommy deepened significantly during this period. We developed new routines and traditions that were ours alone. Saturday morning hikes in the foothills replaced Sunday family pancakes. We started cooking dinner together every night, with Tommy becoming surprisingly skilled at basic meal preparation. Richard and Linda Thompson kept their promise about continuing to consider Tommy and me family. They invited us to holiday celebrations and maintained regular contact, which provided continuity during a time of enormous change. Their support was invaluable, especially since they were dealing with their own disappointment and embarrassment about Sarah's choices. 6 months after the anniversary party, I found myself in a place I never could have imagined. Living as a single father was challenging but deeply rewarding. Tommy was thriving with the increased one-on-one attention and the honest communication we'd established. His grades improved, his confidence grew, and our bond became stronger than ever. I started attending a support group for divorced parents, which connected me with other people navigating similar transitions. The group provided practical advice about everything from meal planning to dating considerations, but more importantly, it reminded me that ending a marriage didn't mean failing as a person. The most profound realization came gradually over those months of healing and adjustment. Tommy's innocent discovery of that note had actually saved me from years of living a lie. If he hadn't found it, I might have continued believing in a marriage that existed only in my imagination, while Sarah pursued her double life indefinitely. Sarah eventually moved in with Marcus, and they seemed happy together, based on occasional updates from mutual acquaintances. Tommy adjusted to spending time in their apartment, though he consistently expressed preference for our house and routines. Their relationship with him was cordial, but never approached the closeness we'd developed. The anger I initially felt towards Sarah gradually evolved into something closer to pity. She traded a stable family life and a marriage built on genuine love for the excitement of an affair that might or might not last. She'd hurt her parents, confused her son, and lost the respect of many people who'd cared about her. Whether her choice would ultimately bring her happiness remained to be seen. For Tommy and me, the future looked bright despite the unconventional path that had brought us here. We were building a life based on honesty, communication, and mutual respect. The trauma of discovering his mother's betrayal was gradually being replaced by confidence in his ability to navigate difficult situations and trust in our relationship. As I reflect on that Saturday afternoon drive to Boulder, I'm struck by how completely one moment can change everything. If Tommy hadn't been looking for gum in Sarah's purse, if he'd decided not to tell me about the note, if I'd chosen to ignore the warning signs I'd been seeing for months, our story would have unfolded very differently. Instead, a 10-year-old boy's honesty became the catalyst for truth, difficult change, and ultimately a more authentic life for both of us. Sometimes, the most painful discoveries lead to the most necessary transformations. The question I ask myself now isn't whether I could have saved my marriage, but whether it was worth saving once I understood what it had actually become. The answer, painful as it was to reach, is no. Tommy and I deserved better than living with lies, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose truth over comfort. I hope sharing this story helps someone else recognize the warning signs I missed, or find the courage to make difficult but necessary changes in their own life. Sometimes children see what adults refuse to acknowledge, and sometimes the most devastating discoveries become the foundation for building something better. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to choose between a comfortable lie and a painful truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if the story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating life's unexpected challenges. Don't forget to share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to always choose honesty even when it's difficult. Remember that sometimes the most painful endings become the most beautiful new beginnings.